Wuthering Waves' third endgame mode, Doubled Pawn Matrix, has come out in the version 3.0 update. So, how does this new endgame mode work? How can you best optimize your clears? And what are my thoughts on this new endgame mode? That's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video, starting with the structure of the new endgame mode. The game has two difficulties, but they function very similarly to each other, so I'm simply going to explain the overall structure first, and then I'll explain how the two difficulties differ from each other. The structure of the new endgame mode revolves entirely around boss fights. You will be presented with 4 bosses, all spawning in succession of each other. So in the very first reset, it starts with the Phalian Berengal, then the Inferno Rider, then Sentry Construct, and finally Lampy Lumen Myriad. Whenever you kill one of these bosses, the next one will immediately spawn in. You will also be able to select one of 4 buffs, which cover plenty of different archetypes. There is the Generalist buff, there is the Negative Status buff, the Tune Break buff, and the Echo Skill buff, meaning that no matter what team you're playing, there's always going to be a good buff for you. And I'm assuming every single update, the buffs you can select will be different. So while we might currently have Negative Status, Tune Break, and Echo Skill damage shield, we might see shield buffs for things like shields in the future. But because the first buff is a universal one, every single team is going to have access to some sort of good buffs, which is very nice to see. After you've finished playing your first team, you'll be sent back into the team selection menu to continue the challenge with a different team. It saves all of the damage you've done to a boss. So for example, if with your first team you manage to beat the Phalian Berengal and get the Inferno Rider to half HP, your next team will start at Inferno Rider while he's already at half HP, so you're not wasting any of your damage. This is where the difference in the two difficulties comes in. In the first difficulty, you only have to beat each boss one time, and you get a maximum of 3 teams to do so. Meanwhile, in the second difficulty, you can keep going infinitely, with the bosses getting more and more HP as you go on. You also get an infinite amount of teams to try to get as many points as possible. So ultimately, this is one of the best modes if you have a highly invested account and want to show off just how strong your account is. This approach of being allowed to use infinite teams, but the performance of each team still matters, is very good in my opinion, as it benefits both horizontal and vertical investment. However, in my experience, horizontal investment does seem to be benefited more, and that gets me to how to actually optimize this mode. But before you think about optimizing, first think about what you care about. The reason I say this is because not all of the rewards in this endgame mode involve Asterites. There are plenty of rewards in this endgame that give you absolutely no Asterites whatsoever. So if you're only here to get all of the Asterites, the goals are going to be different from if you were trying to get as high of a score as possible. I assume most people only care about the Asterites, so I'm going to discuss that first and then talk about min-maxing your score later. Now, what do you need to do to obtain all of the Asterites from this new endgame mode? In the easy mode, you need to obtain a total of 10,000 points. This is simply done by defeating all 4 of the bosses within the 3-team limit that you're given. So ultimately, it really just comes down to beat all of the bosses. It's completely safe to simply throw your strongest teams at the wall during the easy mode, as it does not consume any vigor for the hard mode. Speaking of the hard mode, let's talk about that next. To get all of the Asterites within the hard mode, you need to get a total of 21,000 points, as well as use at least 4 teams that get 5,000 points on their own. So if you want to get all of the Asterite rewards simply using 4 teams, you need to get an average of 5,250 points per team. This is not super hard to do. Almost any character within their best team can do this really. Zhanglia lynae can do it, Carlotta Zhezha, you can pull out literally any Frolova team, Galbrenna as long as you have a decent support for her, Augusta Mortefi can do it very easily. Honestly, any good DPS will be able to fulfill this requirement. So realistically, all you need is 4 good teams. Now don't stress too hard about your healers, because Kuro was smart enough to give characters like Shorekeeper and Verena 2 vigor, which means that with only Shorekeeper and Verena, you have enough healers if you intend to use 4 teams. However, if you intend to use more than 4 teams, you're gonna need to get more creative with it. For example, using teams like Monofusion that don't have a universal healer, or pulling for Mornia in the second half of the update to get an additional universal healer. And if you're struggling to put teams together because you don't have all of your characters built, don't worry. Kuro Games thought of this as well, because as long as you own a character, they will give you a trial version to use that is properly built. Sure, they're not on their signature weapons and they don't have crazy echoes or anything, but it's more than passable enough to fulfill the job. So ultimately, getting all of the Astrite rewards within the new endgame mode is not super hard, at least assuming you have a decently well invested account. But how about if you wanted to full clear the mode? Trust me, most people are not going to be able to do this. This is an incredibly hard challenge that I don't recommend unless you really like pushing your limits. In which case, who am I to deny you? Instead of needing to use 4 teams to get 5,000 points each, you need to be able to use 6 teams to get 5,000 points each. Now honestly, this one is going to happen automatically if you're trying to score as high as possible. Because, well, you simply are going to need that many teams unless you have multiple S6 characters. However, what about the other requirement? Well, for the other requirement, you need to get a total of 58,000 points. This is an absolutely ludicrous number that most accounts are not going to be able to reach. Take me, for example. I have a lot of invested characters and pulled for a lot of good characters. Yet even I was unable to reach the 58,000 points required. Now I'm sure that with more time and more practice, I might be able to do it. But it still goes to show just how hard it really is to get that 58,000 requirement. If you want to chase it, go ahead, but don't expect to actually get there. Now you're probably wondering how you best build your account around the new endgame mode. First of all, I'm going to say, don't do that. Don't build your account around this new endgame. It's meant to be a harder challenge, so it gives less Astrites and resets less often. You shouldn't build your account around this mode if you need improvements to be made elsewhere. So I would instead focus on Tower or Whimpering Wastes first, and if you're able to fully clear them, then you can think about building your account for this mode. With that out of the way, which characters are the best within this new mode? And I'm gonna say it right now, that question is irrelevant. Because the real way that you actually optimize your clears within this mode is by simply getting as many full teams as possible. It isn't about what the strongest teams are for the mode, it's about how many good teams you're able to make. This increases the value of characters like Choyuan. Because while Choyuan might not be super necessary within a Galbrena team, because you could simply run Monofusion, it's more efficient to run Monofusion Changli and then use a Galbrena Choyuan team. So trying to actually finish character teams and not settling for the second best in slot is always going to be a good play for maximizing your scores within this mode. This is however not to say that the value of universal characters is greatly diminished, because the role of universal characters now change. Instead of being pulled simply because they work in a ton of teams, you're now going to use them to patch the holes in your account. Going back to the Galbrena example, you can still run Changli Monofusion and then run Galbrena with lynae, because lynae is an incredibly versatile character. So you're able to use her to basically fill any hole that your teams have. This new endgame mode also greatly encourages investing into the characters that get 2 vigor, those being characters like Shorekeeper and Mornia. Because you're able to use them 2 times, investing into them is going to have a much higher impact on your overall performance. In Tower and wuwa, getting an Augusta S2 would be more useful than getting a Shorekeeper S2 within the context of an Augusta team. But because Augusta gets only 1 usage in Doubled Pawn Matrix, while Shorekeeper gets 2, getting more investment into a character like Shorekeeper is overall going to get you a lot more benefit within this mode. That's about all I have to say about how you can best optimize the mode, so now I'm going to finish this video off by giving my own thoughts. I think this endgame mode is spectacular, and is exactly what I wanted to see in Wuthering Waves. While I was a defender of Whimpering Wastes on its release, it is undoubted that I still prefer fighting bosses. So focusing entirely on boss fights during this new endgame is something I really enjoy. The Endless mode also forces me to be very strategic with which characters I use with who. I wanted to use both my GN and my Augusta, but because I don't have Yuno on my account, Mortefi was stretched rather thin. So I had to use Shakona with my GN, so Mortefi could go to my Augusta. This is a level of strategy I don't need for Tower of Adversity, because I don't need to use endless teams there. So this extra layer of strategizing is something I greatly enjoy. Additionally, this endgame gives me a lot more challenge, because to get all the rewards, you need to have a way stronger account than something like Tower or wuwa, and that is yet again something I am a fan of. I've already expressed enjoyment about the fact that this mode benefits both horizontal and vertical investment, but I'm gonna mention it again because this is something I really enjoy about this game mode. And then finally, the infinitely scaling nature of this game mode means I feel rewarded for every single character I get. It's not like I'm abandoning characters like my GN or my Jinshi because I don't use them in wuwa or Tower anymore, because they still serve me a good purpose within this new endgame mode. The ability to use a literal infinite amount of teams is something that no other gacha game that I play has tried yet, and honestly, after seeing its implementation in Wuthering Waves, I really hope to see it in other gacha games. It gives us a unique amount of strategizing that we haven't really seen in other games before. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think of Doubled Pawn Matrix down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. If you just want to see more of me, you can check out my second channel, which is also linked in the description. But that'll be all from me. Peace.